and welcome to Roundtable on Telil Community Television. I'm your host, Adam Cook. This week, we take a look at the recent fall sitting of the Nova Scotia legislature with two Cape Breton MLAs from two different parties. From the governing PC party, we have Inverness MLA Deputy Premier and Finance Minister Allan MacMaster, and we're going to speak to the NDP representative from Cape Breton Centre-Whitney Pier, Kendra Coombes. You're also going to see some recent town council footage from Port Hawkesbury that will help illustrate how the town and Richmond County are working with the Cape Breton South Recruiting for Health Committee to try to bring a new doctor to Port Hawkesbury who might be able to serve beyond the town limits throughout the Strait area. But we begin with the first of our two MLA interviews this week. Allan MacMaster had a busy time during this session of the legislature. In addition to his current roles as the PC MLA for Inverness, the Deputy Premier, the Minister of Finance, and the Minister responsible for Labour Relations, MacMaster also became Nova Scotia's new Minister of Communities, Culture, Heritage and Tourism. Here he is right now to reflect on all of these roles and how the provincial legislature sitting affected Nova Scotia public policy during the past couple of months. Here's my interview with Inverness PC MLA and Cabinet Minister Allan MacMaster right now. And now we're pleased to welcome back to Telil Community Television Nova Scotia's Deputy Premier and its Minister of Finance, and as well the MLA for Inverness. Please welcome Allan MacMaster to our program Roundtable. Minister MacMaster, thank you for joining me once again.
Always nice to be with you, Adam.
Well, we had three very specific things we wanted to talk to you about this time around, and I wanted to begin by looking at a funding package that was recently put together by your government to improve cell service in different parts of Nova Scotia. And this has some very specific implications for people in Richmond and Inverness Counties. $47.3 million is the figure. Can you tell us where the money is going to go and how it's going to improve things in our neck of the woods?
Well, I can tell you right off the bat, there were 4 locations chosen to expand the trunked mobile network, which is used by our first responders. And 3 of the 4 have landed in our area, one being in Framboise, another being in the Marble Mountain West Bay Road area to cover that area, and the third up in Pleasant Bay. So that's part of this. We've been looking at trying to improve cell coverage. But with that, we also know we've got a lot of towers. The province has towers already for this trunked mobile radio system. So we're looking at those to utilize those to improve cell coverage. And we thought, we need to close the gap also for our first responders when they're trying to use their radios, because we have some serious shortfalls in our area. So part of the announcement was to address that. And more broadly for cell phone coverage, we've been waiting a long, long time for the private sector to bring us the service that we deserve. We can't wait any longer for them. If they were going to bring it, it would have been brought to us a long time ago. It's time for the government to step in and help people with this. And I can tell you, for people here in Inverness, I know it's the same over in Richmond, Antigonish, Guysborough, and it's even an issue in HRM, if you can believe that. There's a lot of calls get dropped on the outskirts of the city. So this is an issue that everybody feels, and I think it's one their government should be responding to, and we are responding to it.
Now, I wanted to ask you about the specific areas targeted. Obviously, as you mentioned, there are service issues for the trunk mobile radio system all over the province. But I note with some interest that the areas covered here, Framboise, Forshoe, Marble Mountain, West Bay, we've seen issues in West Bay Road and Dundee as well. These are areas that have had significant both cell issues and even landline issues for many years. Was that a part of the thinking in terms of the direction of this specific funding package?
Well, there's no question. We've gotten a lot of calls over the years. I shouldn't say a lot, but when you get any, it's a concern for people whose landlines weren't even working, and especially after a heavy rain event. So I know there's I think the water must get in the lines or something, and it messes them up. So we're thinking about people like that when we're trying to make these improvements. If they don't live in an area with cell coverage and the landline doesn't work, it can become a pretty serious situation when they're trying to reach out for help, or to reach out even just to let people know that they're okay. So that was on our mind throughout all of this.
I note with some interest that Bell Canada has been requested to appear before a meeting of Richmond Municipal Council to deal with some of the landline and cell service issues that have been happening in that area, and particularly landline areas in the Framboise and Forshaw area. The trunk mobile system, they're getting some funding, but is your government continuing to work with telecommunications companies to ensure that the improvements that have been made and are being made can continue?
Well, one of the reasons why we've taken such a strong stand to improve cell coverage, because to my knowledge, it's only happened in one other part of the country, and that's in Eastern Ontario, is because the CRTC, which is a federal entity that regulates telecommunications, their answer has always been, and I've been in touch with them myself. Their answer to me is that competition will solve all your problems. Well, the reality of it is, in our region, we don't have competition. We don't have another phone company trying to string landlines out to people in Marble Mountain or West Bay Road area, or into Richmond County in areas where they're having these problems. If we did, we wouldn't need to be calling the CRTC. So in the absence of them doing anything, and in the absence of the private sector doing anything, we decided to take this direction with cell coverage. If we can improve it along roadways for people, if people can have broadband to their home, they can run their cell phones through their broadband, through their internet connection when they're making or receiving calls at home. And then if they're on the road between their home and wherever they're going, if we improve it there, then people will be pretty well connected for their cell phone coverage. There's a chance that if we're fixing it for the roadways, that it captures their home as well. But if it doesn't, hopefully the broadband captures them. So all these technologies can work together. And I realize there are some people out there who may not have cell phones, and the landlines are still important. We are, as a province, for the first time, going to be making a presentation to the CRTC, an official presentation. I believe it's coming up in February, where we will make points like that to them on the record officially, because nobody's ever done it before for our province. We feel that's important to do that because there are people there that deserve better service.
All right, well, we'll keep an eye on that, and we look forward to seeing what comes out of that presentation by the province to the CRTC in February. Let's shift gears for a moment, Minister MacMaster. Your federal counterpart, Chrystia Freeland, put out an economic update for Canada and offered some relief to those who are struggling with inflation and other issues that have been occurring in the country over the last few months. And what did you think about what the federal government had to offer a couple of days ago?
I know they're focused on housing, and we are too. Even in rural areas like our region now, we know there's a lot of people who are struggling to find a place to live. And the cost of housing has gone up so much in the last 3 or 4 years. So they're in their update, their focus was on access to credit, giving loans to developers who want to make it easier for them to build more housing. That's what we need, is more supply, of housing. And so, I mean, hopefully that will help. Some of the things that we've been doing, one of the things we've seen is that labor supply. We have a shortage of workers right now, and that's one of the things that's holding us back here. And we just put forward a plan for the skilled trades to try to create more pathways into them for people who live here and people who are new Nova Scotians who've just immigrated here, trying to improve retention. There's a lot of people go into the skilled trades and don't complete and get their certification. So we're investing quite a bit of money. It's actually about $100 million into a package of reforms to try to improve and increase the number of skilled tradespeople in our province, because if we have them, we can start to build more because our builders need them. And if we're constrained, we don't have enough people to be able to build the homes we need, we're not going to get them built, no matter how easy it is to get a loan to build a property. So, I mean, I'm hopeful that what the federal government is planning to do is helpful, and but we really see the labor shortage as one of the key needs in solving the housing problem.
I note that there was a provincial announcement made at 4 different Nova Scotia Community College campuses around the province over the past couple of days regarding housing for students who are coming in. Now, we've seen some stride in the Strait Area campus catchment area, specifically that Port Hawkesbury campus has been constructing its own residence for students. And as well, we saw an announcement earlier this year from Collindale Business Solutions and Damien McInnes heading up this particular project involving housing for students and looking for investors there. Is this on the radar for your government, and particularly for you as the MLA for Port Hawkesbury in the riding of Inverness? What can you tell me about the situation at Strait Area Campus?
I can tell you the Strait Area Campus, as you know and as you referenced, they recently had some housing residents built on the property there in Port Hastings. I guess it's actually within the town of Port Hawkesbury. It's right around the border there. So that's good. And the Strait Campus, the Nautical Institute, they've got people coming in there year round, and there's a lot of people that come from other countries because the training is so specialized there. So if a case was to be made for a residence, the Strait Campus would have been very high on the list. And I think that's why they got a residence there sooner than other campuses that you're seeing announcements for now. Those will certainly help. I can tell you, I'm most concerned with housing that is being built out in the community, because even after somebody finishes their education, they still need a place to live. And so I put out a release locally a few weeks ago, just making developers aware that there are funding supports available from the provincial government right now. I received a fair bit of interest. I'd say between 8 and 10 companies and individuals reached back and said they were interested, and we connected them to a provincial contact for affordable housing. And I'm hopeful that some of those organizations will end up taking these supports, and if they're not enough, if it's not going to cut it to deliver more housing, well, we also need to know that. So if any of them are not interested for some reason, I want to be able to know that, because at the end of the day, we need more housing. And until we get more of it, people are still going to struggle to find places to live, and it's going to cost a lot for people to live anywhere. It's not an easy time for people who have been in transition or who have just moved here. You know, for people who have been here and they have their home and they're locked into a mortgage, they probably don't like their mortgage payments going up with higher interest rates, but at least they have their property. But for people who've been trying to get in and buy a property or rent a property the last couple of years, it's been really tough.
All of this ties back into the last subject matter I wanted to bring up with you, just an overall look at the recently concluded legislature session. And I don't want to say that your government has stopped focusing on healthcare and on its stated campaign promise to fix healthcare, as the saying goes. That's still a priority, of course, but it seems that housing has gotten more traction and more attention in terms of the daily news cycle and in terms of the overall focus for your government. Is that a fair assessment? I know affordable housing has been an issue in Richmond and Inverness for many years, and it's certainly now an issue in HRM. It has been an issue for a while as well. But just how would you overall look at the previous legislature session and what the topics of conversation were in the House?
Well, the topics of conversation are often driven by the opposition when we're in the House, and housing is certainly the topic of the day. It's affecting people, and I think it's maybe a testament to all the work we've been doing in healthcare, that they probably don't want to be talking so much about healthcare, because they know that we're investing a lot in it. And you know, we've got contracts signed with doctors, with nurses, with CCAs, with paramedics now as of about a week or so ago, and we're investing amounts in capital, improve hospitals, and so on. All of those things. So we're hopeful that they're going to make people feel better about the healthcare system and feel like they're getting the service they need to get when they need it. So housing did certainly take up a lot of the discussion in this fall sitting, but it's nothing new to us. I remember 3 weeks in after being sworn in, we allocated millions of dollars to increase the number of rental supplements available in the province. Those are if people can find a place to live, but it's outside of their budget range, the rent supplement can top up what they have so that they can actually secure the apartment or the rental unit they're trying to get into. So we've increased those from 5,000 in the province to 8,000 in 2 years. So we did that right away when we came to office. I think, in fairness to the last government, we can't build housing overnight. It should have been built, starting to be built before now, but every jurisdiction, I think, on the planet pretty well is dealing with a housing shortage. Certainly in North America we are. And a lot of people didn't see it coming. The important thing now is that we're making the investments, including the first government-owned increase in public housing since, I think it's 1995.
Yeah.
So we're actually building government housing units. And we have to, because if the private sector is not going to build it to the volume that we need to increase the supply to what it needs to be, we've realized that we have to start building more units ourselves.
We have covered a lot of ground here, Minister MacMaster, as I thought we would in this conversation. Did you want to add anything else about any of this just before we wrap up here?
Just a couple of other things. Universal mental health is another thing that we committed to, and there was a bill passed this fall sitting on that to allow the minister to establish services for that so that people can get, if they have mental health care needs that they can't currently get addressed in the healthcare system, that they'd be able to get support where it's paid for by the government, by taxpayers, to help people who need it. Because mental health is no different than other forms of healthcare. That's what we believe. So we've started, we passed a bill on that. We also passed a bill where we can now take opioid companies. A lot of opioid companies were marketing their product to physicians over the past, 10 years, 20 years. They were being prescribed, and the opioid companies knew full well how addictive their products were, and it's cost governments millions upon millions of dollars to deal with the fallout of the addictions and the damage it's caused to people's lives. So our province can now join with others in suing those companies to get some of the profits they made from the sale of those opioids to pay for the cost they've borne upon society. So that was another bill we passed. And another one that, the last one I'll mention, Adam, that gathered a lot of attention was a new memorandum of understanding with the municipalities.
Yes.
We have our local municipal governments, we have the provincial government. This is the agreement that how we sort of share the funding of services and provide services to the public. It was the first one, and I think it was almost 30 years that it was changed. And I think most municipalities were happy with it. And I know our local ones, I believe, were. You'll certainly have an opportunity to interview them, I'm sure, at some point on that. And but that was something that was a big part of our legislative sitting this fall as well.
A lot of moving parts to a legislature sitting and to daily life in Nova Scotia, especially from the government perspective. But we appreciate you giving us your time and your insight here, Minister MacMaster. So thank you once again for joining me here on Tellil Community Television for our Roundtable series.
Thank you, Adam.
Allan MacMaster is the MLA for Inverness, and he is also Nova Scotia's Deputy Premier and Minister of Finance. Stay tuned for more of Roundtable in just a moment. We'll hear more on the recent fall legislature sitting from NDP MLA for Cape Breton Centre-Whitney Pier, Kendra Coombes, in just a few moments. But right now, let's shift our focus to Port Hawkesbury Town Council, A recent discussion took place at the latest regular town council meeting involving the potential relocation of a doctor to Port Hawkesbury to serve the town and the General Strait area. Councillor Jason Aucoin relayed a request from the Cape Breton South Recruiting for Health Committee that has been sent out to Port Hawkesbury and the municipality of Richmond County in the hopes of getting letters of support to bring this doctor to the Strait area. Here's Councillor Aucoin to set things up.
He expressed great interest in coming to the Port Hawkesbury area. He says that some of his colleagues are here and they're praising Port Hawkesbury, and it's a great place to practice, which was very nice to hear. I took as much information from him as I could and put him in touch with Gina McDonald, our navigator. Gina's been in conversation back and forth now for a week and a half, and Gina reached out this morning. She sent an email which I shared with council, and she's kind of given us the Coles Notes version of the type of support letter she needs. Right now, what we're seeing is that there's some areas in much greater need than Port Hawkesbury for this doctor. The fear that we're having after having multiple conversations with this doctor is that if he can't come to Port Hawkesbury, he's probably not going to stay in Nova Scotia. So Gina's been advocating, and she feels a support letter from the town of Port Hawkesbury would be a big help. Richmond County is also talking about and will be giving a support letter as well for Gina to send along. So I'm just asking council if they're okay with us doing a letter of support to try to bring another doctor into the town.
In pointing out the rapidly advancing timeline for the situation to bring this new doctor to Port Hawkesbury, Councillor Jason Aucoin told the November regular meeting of Port Hawkesbury Town Council that several steps have to be taken in order to bring this doctor here, although he's taken the steps himself to be able to get the proper licensing for Nova Scotia service.
He is a doctor, not licensed to practice in Canada as of today. He writes his exam very shortly, and as soon as that exam is passed, they will tell him where he's going to work. So he wants to be able to have some reassurance that he can come to Port Hawkesbury, and this is why Gina is working so quickly.
Councillor Aucoin also noted that the healthcare recruitment navigator for Cape Breton South Recruiting for Health, Gina McDonald, had already sent packages to Richmond Municipal Council and the town of Port Hawkesbury in terms of getting their letters of support for this potential new doctor for the town.
She's got a package she's getting together to make a case for this doctor to come here.
And now we're going to return to our discussion about the recent fall legislature sitting here in Nova Scotia. This time we get the NDP perspective from Cape Breton Centre-Whitney Pier MLA Kendra Coombes. She's been a frequent visitor to our Roundtable series here on Tell-Il Community Television. As a matter of fact, 2 years ago this week, MLA Kendra Coombes and Minister Allan MacMaster were two of the three participants in the very first Roundtable MLA discussion panel. So we're going to bring Kendra Coombes back right now to give her thoughts on the way the legislature rolled out over the past couple of months. And we're pleased to welcome back to our series Roundtable to talk about the legislature session just wrapped up and her personal wishes for 2024 in terms of public policy and government action. We're pleased to welcome back the Cape Breton Centre-Whitney Pier NDP MLA. She is Kendra Coombes. Kendra, welcome back. Thank you for joining me here today.
I'm happy to join you.
We're glad to have you here as we look back on the fall legislature sitting. And this was an interesting sitting of the legislature for many reasons. It seemed like the focus shifted from healthcare to housing on the government's part. And a new speaker, the first female speaker, Carla McFarlane, the MLA for Pictou West, being nominated as the speaker just a couple of days into the session. So basically, looking back on all that, your thoughts on how the fall legislature sitting went and just your general reaction to all of this.
I don't think it was smooth. It was very much not a smooth session. I think it started off fairly on the wrong tone, on the wrong foot. We went from a normal day to the 2 days in, we were being called for midnight sessions for no reason. You know, going to midnight and going to those types of extreme hours should only be for extreme circumstances. You know, when you're looking at what we saw under the McNeil's time of the labor issues. Those things require midnight sittings. Those things require, if it has to be 24-hour sittings. But the session we were in, the time did not seem to call for that kind of extreme sitting. Because you don't get anything good. No good legislation or good debate can happen, you know, during those times, right? And no one's paying attention. Media is gone. People are gone to bed. So the time did not seem to call for that, and yet there we were, day 3, 11:59 calling. You know, so we kind of started off on the wrong foot. A lot of bells got rung. Not much work got done because we were in this unhealthy work environment, pretty much. And so not much work was getting done to make Nova Scotians better. So coming out of the sitting, were Nova Scotians better off after we rose than when we went in? No, after 4 weeks of the fall sitting, Nova Scotians were no better off than prior. Because certain things, housing is still a problem. The housing problem was not solved in the legislature in this sitting, because it seemed to be a fight between the province deciding to pick a fight with the HRM and the CBRM.
Yes.
The cost of living didn't get a proper screening, and childcare is still a mess. We still don't have a universal school lunch program. So, you know, for the 4 weeks that we were in, the work that should have been done on behalf of Nova Scotians to make life better. Those bills never came before us.
So I just want to make sure I have you straight on this. You'd mentioned that you had seen midnight sessions under the McNeil government, the previous Liberal government, to deal with major labor bills, and we have seen that sort of situation. So with this particular government, these kinds of sessions were happening just simply for the basic business of the legislature. They weren't pinned on 1 or 2 major time-sensitive pieces of legislation. What was that like, just looking at your watch at, say, 1:45 in the morning and saying, well, here we are just carrying on as if we were during the day?
Well, I wouldn't say we were at 1:45. I'd say 11. At 10 o'clock, you're sitting there going, okay, what are we really accomplishing here? At 11 o'clock, you're sitting there going, okay, what are we accomplishing? Nothing's being accomplished. And so under the McNeil government, with those bills that were being debated, 11:59 would happen, and they'd stand up and call 12:01, right, under McNeil. The time called for those situations, whether you agreed with the bills or not, which I did not agree with the bills. The situation we found ourselves in, or the legislature found itself in, called on that because there was unrest in the province. There were time-sensitive bills that needed time-sensitive issues that needed to be debated, and debated well, and required that time from the legislature. The bills that came before us this session did not have that time sensitivity, and did not have that immediacy that we needed to do it. We need to get it done. And so at the end of it, we did not have that opportunity. The government didn't take our time in the legislature, did not take the time in the legislature to provide us with bills that would strengthen protections for renters. create an income benefit for seniors, announcing a universal school program, and ban childcare waitlist fees. So we didn't have those bills before us that would actually were going to fully affect Nova Scotians and do it well. So calling 11:59 hours was not conducive to a healthy work environment, but it was also not conducive to actually working on behalf of Nova Scotians and doing the work that they needed and getting those type of the lists that I just mentioned, the opportunities that were missed by the government to put in place.
Let's talk a little bit about some of those individual issues then. I mean, obviously, housing has become a flashpoint all over the province. It does seem to be getting more media coverage in terms of what's going on in HRM, particularly with the homeless situation, the tent cities setting up around Grand Parade. But at the same time as well, you mentioned CBRM, and I know affordable housing has been an issue here in Richmond County and the town of Port Hawkesbury for many years as well too. Did it seem that the provincial government, in rolling out housing announcements for the next couple of years, may have left Cape Breton, both your part of Cape Breton and the island overall, behind?
100%. 100%. So the thing is, in HRM, housing is very, or homelessness is very visible. In our area, in Cape Breton, from one end of it to the other, it looks different. There's a lot more couch surfing. There's a lot more precarious housing where abandoned places are often found. And it looks like it's and most people who are going to live rough around here are either in their cars parked at, a grocery store location, oftentimes, or they're living rough in tents in the woods, in the wooded areas. And so it's not as visible, but it's still there. And it's still there in great proportions compared to our population. And we are what angered me in the legislature this past session was that I had brought this up the session before that and the session before that. And still, this government did not have a plan in place for homelessness all year long and didn't have a plan for people who are living rough and living in homeless situations for the winter. We are now, it's November 29th. And there's still no full plan in place. There's still there doesn't seem to be any infrastructure built or situated yet in place in any area for the winter. And it's cold outside. And this government has had over 2 years and have done nothing. Nothing, and there's so much they could have done. So much that could have been done. One, to help those who are living rough and homeless now, and to prevent people from becoming homeless. And those two spokes were not dealt with in the past 2 years. And they were not dealt with in this session. We have no plan. Nothing was put in, like I said, no protections for renters. Nothing to deal with the cost of living. Nothing. They still won't even provide we still can't even get government to provide us with a definition of what they believe is affordable housing. CMHC says it's 30% of your income. But we have a government that won't do that. We have a government who changed the subsidy program when it used to be 30% of your income to 50% of your income, which has left a lot of people in a scary situation in their housing. They boast about the seniors care grant, and the seniors care grant is great, But there's other provinces that have a better income benefit for seniors than what we have. And now we have an issue with a company, an oil company that has gone out of, fuel company that's gone out of, that's gone for bankruptcy.
Yes,
And we have a
maritime
bunch of
fuels.
people.
Yeah.
Yes, and we have a bunch of people who have lost money. When they were on a payment program, and they've lost money. And then we have a premier who compared that to a gym membership. I mean, this is the situation that we are in. We are not in a situation where things are moving fast. We're not in a situation where things are moving at a rate where you feel the importance of the moment and the need to, and the need of the moment. We didn't see that in the legislature, where we could have put forward things that were going to protect people and be able to stay in their homes rather than find themselves in a situation where they're living in a homeless situation. And we're dealing with the cost of food. You know, we could have eliminated some of the taxes on food items at the grocery store to make it easier for people to afford those costs and other necessities. And this government didn't do that. We put forward the bills in the NDP. We put forward a lot of these cost of living bills, and the government didn't do any of it, or didn't even provide their own bills on it. And that could say, you know, every little bit helps to save money and keep people in their homes. And saving money at the grocery store might mean you'll be able to pay your rent. Saving money on your medications might mean you can pay your rent and heat your home.
I'm realizing as we're having this conversation, Kendra, that I have never had a one-on-one interview with you as we're heading into Christmas and as we're heading into the winter. And a lot of these measures that you speak of, the basic cost of living issues, inflation. We saw carbon pricing come into effect this past summer, even though the federal government has put a 3-year pause on the carbon price for home heating fuels in Atlantic Canada. So basically, what are your constituents saying to you right now as they look into this Christmas and holiday season, but also the winter coming ahead? I've had a couple of people in the social justice sector say this could be the toughest winter a lot of people around here face in a long time. What are your thoughts on that, and what would you hope as an MLA to be able to do about that?
I think it is going to be I think it's going to be very tough. Last year was tough. As an MLA, last year was very tough for my constituents. And this year, we haven't seen a leveling off of costs. We haven't seen anyone get a break. And so I think we're going to see more hardship for quite a lot of people, particularly those that are more vulnerable. And you know, my hope as an MLA is that this Houston government is going to actually come through for people, and make life easier, and help make, you know, life easier for people and families and people living alone. You know, so my hope is we're going to see protections for renters in order to ensure that they stay at their homes. We're going to see a better benefit for seniors. My hope is that we are going to see, you know, universal school lunch programs and better breakfast programs. We're going to see bans on these strange evictions that we're seeing, like rent evictions and the no pet clauses in leases that are just coming out that are also causing people to leave their homes. You know, I think I may have said this, but we're going to see a ban on childcare fees. And these are the fees where waitlist fees. So these are fees where people pay to have their child on a wait list. And they are paying these waitlist fees to various different organizations where they have their child on wait list. We're going to see, we're going to see breaks on food at the grocery store. Or, these are the things we need to see. We need to see people being able to afford their medications so that they can stay at a hospital. So we can lower our ER deaths that are continuing to increase. So yeah, my hope is we're going to have a government that's going to step in and make life more affordable for people so that people can live in dignity. And I think I may have said this. I think I may have said this to you last year. I'm scared of what next year looks like. And here I am again speaking with you. And I think everything I said is pretty much the same as what I said. I feel like I've been beating the same drum now for a few years and saying like a broken record. But it's just that this broken record is not getting repaired. There's nothing that's happening that's showing me that things are changing for my constituents or for Cape Breton or for Nova Scotia. It just seems to be getting worse. The cost of everything is continuously rising and people's incomes are not keeping up. And we're now seeing people who used to make comfortable living are also now struggling. And then you've got people who are still dealing with Fiona issues and who are out of their homes still, or their homes are not fixed yet. People are still without roofs on their homes. They're still, you come around my riding and you'll still see tarps up on roofs. So, it's tough. It's going to be, I think it's going to be a tough winter if the Houston government does not step in and do something quickly.
Well, as we're wrapping up here, Kendra, looking at the difficult situation for so many people, both inside and outside of your riding and inside and outside of Cape Breton, you have been an MLA for your constituency in its various forms for just over 3 years, spanning 2 different governments of 2 different parties. You've seen the difficulties that happen with midnight sessions in the legislature, with your personal frustrations that it seems like the problems that surround us aren't being dealt with by the provincial government. What keeps you going day by day? What puts the fire in your belly to continue to work for your constituents and try to get answers on all of these questions? Basically, what keeps you going?
Because I think we can make life better. I think the right people at the table can make life better. And so if one day I would love to form another NDP government here in Nova Scotia. I would love to see that and start making life better for people. But in opposition, putting their stories on the floor of the legislature, advocating for them every day with the ministers' offices, speaking to reporters such as yourself to put these issues on the radar is important to me. Working for my constituents, that's what keeps me going, wanting to make life better for, people in Cape Breton, people in Nova Scotia, my own children, and everyone else and everybody else. That's what keeps me going, wanting to ensure that people live in dignity. And if my voice amplifying those issues can do that, then I'm going to get up every morning and continue to do it. It's too important not to do it. But you need to have the right people around the table, and you need to have the right people amplifying the voices that need to be amplified, who don't often get to, they have voices and sometimes they just need a little more amplification. And if me sitting in the legislature asking ministers those questions, me in my office writing the emails and contacting the ministers about these issues, and not just the issues, but what I see as solutions to those issues can make life better, then I will continue to keep doing it.
Well, we've appreciated having you around the legislature table and appreciated having you here with us on Roundtable. And as a matter of fact, we were talking before the interview, this is actually the 2-year anniversary of your first participation in our very first MLA panel for the Roundtable series.
Yeah.
So it's wonderful how these things come full circle. So Kendra Coombes, thank you for always making time for us, and thank you for making some time for us today here at Lil.
Always, thank you very much. It was my pleasure.
Mhm. No trouble at all. Kendra Coombes is the New Democrat MLA for the riding of Cape Breton Centre-Whitney Pier. We've been speaking to her today via Zoom from her home office in Reserve Mines. And just as we're wrapping up this edition of Roundtable, we'd like our Tellil viewers to know that we have been making an effort to bring a Liberal MLA into our discussion about the recent legislature session. We did have a studio interview set up at Tellil just a couple of weeks ago involving 2 members of the Liberal caucus for Nova Scotia. Unfortunately, illness has forced us to postpone those interviews until January. We have been working with another Liberal MLA to nail down an interview for early December, and we hope to be able to bring you that interview shortly on a new episode of Roundtable or our sister program Tellil 24/7. For now, we'd like to thank our interview guests this week, Kendra Coombes and Allan MacMaster, and we'd like to thank you for watching. If you have any thoughts about what you've seen on this week's Roundtable, or you'd just like to make some suggestions for a future edition of the show, I'd love to hear them. You can contact me directly. My phone number is 902-625-8863, and you can reach me by email using the address adamjrcook, cook with an E, @gmail.com. You can also contact Tellil Community Television directly with your suggestions and your comments. The station phone number is 902-226-1928, and the best email address to use is tellil@tellil.tv. As always, you can follow Tellil on social media. We're on X, formerly known as Twitter, as well as Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. Our YouTube channel features every single episode of Roundtable, including this one, as well as individual segments and interviews from our shows. We offer the same service for Tellil 24/7, and you can also see on YouTube a whole batch of new French language journalism produced by the newest member of the Tellil news team, Jacqueline Giroir. For now, I'm Adam Cook. Thank you once again for joining me for this week's edition of Roundtable. I look forward to seeing you again next week with a brand new show. Bye for now.